Hello students, my name is Dr. Ashutosh and I welcome you on this another video on biomechanics which is about the sternoclavicular joint. So this is the first joint that we are going to study in this series, which is a part of the shoulder complex. This is a very important joint that we all must know about. So let's start today's lecture with this interesting topic about sternoclavicular joint. So there are some general features that we all know before looking deep into the biomechanics of the sternoclavicular joint. So this is a very complex articulation which is formed between the medial end of the clavicle and with the clavicular facet on the sternum. So this is between the two bones. Which are those two bones? First is the medial end of the clavicle and the another bone is the clavicular facet, which is present on the manubrium of the sternum. And also there is superior border of the cartilage of the rib which is present within this joint. So there are basically two important bones that we must know. First is the clavicle and other is the sternum. And there is one very much important peculiarity which is present about the clavicle and the manubrium is that this joint is a saddle shaped joint. When we were studying about the types of joint, then there we studied the saddle shaped joint, which is like the saddle on a horse. So these are the joints which are convex in one direction and concave in another direction. This is what is happening over here. As you can see, this medial end of the clavicle, this is convex in this direction, which is longitudinal direction, and this bone is concave in transversely in the transverse direction. Reciprocal to this, on the manubrium or the clavicular facet, it is concave longitudinally so that it can accommodate the clavicle, and it is convex in this direction, which is the transverse direction, to accommodate this concave part of the clavicle. So they both are reciprocally shaped, and this type of joint, this type of structure is called the saddle shape of joint. Why? Because the articulating bones is having convex shape in one direction and concave in another direction. So first and very important thing about sternoclavicular joint is that this is the joint which is of saddle shape. This is a saddle shaped joint. Then the large and exposed articular surface of the clavicle is resting against the smaller slope of the sternum. So your clavicle medial end is very large if you compare it with the clavicular facet, but there you can see this does not result in the instability of this joint. Why? Because there is the articulating disc which is present in this joint, which increases the congruity. So an articular disc over here, you can see this orange thing, this is the articular disc which is present over here. What is the function of this articular disc? Its function is to increase the congruity of the joint. It is resulting in increasing the congruity. Also, it is there to absorb the shock. Whenever there is a force, there are forces on this joint, it will get absorbed by this articulating disc. So this articulating disc is having two important functions. First is to provide the stability, and then to increase the congruity of the joint. And the stability is actually performed by the articular disc by the function of the shock absorption. Now there are some connective tissues which are present around this joint. First is the sternoclavicular ligament, second is the interclavicular ligament, third is the costoclavicular ligament, and also some muscles are present in anterior and posterior direction to provide the additional stability. And what are those muscles? So those muscles is your sternocleidomastoid, which is present on the anterior side. And to be very specific, the sternal head of the sternocleidomastoid is present on the anterior direction, while on the posterior direction your sternothyroid and sternohyoid muscles are present to provide the stability to this joint. Now we are going to look at each of these periarticular connective tissue one by one. Starting first, this is the diagram which is depicting all the ligaments. So this yellow is your interclavicular ligament, and this orange color or this color is your sternoclavicular ligament, and this green color is your costoclavicular ligament, which are the three main ligaments present at the sternoclavicular joints, which functions in providing the stability to the joint. Now let's see some important facts about the sternoclavicular joint. So this sternoclavicular joint is having two parts. First is the anterior part, which is present in the front side, and then there is a posterior part which is present on the posterior side. This posterior sternoclavicular ligament, it extends from the posterior aspect of the clavicle or the posterior aspect of the medial end of the clavicle to the posterior superior manubrium. So from the posterior direction it is present, so all the posteriorly directed force will be restrained by this ligament. Then there is anterior sternoclavicular ligament which is present on the medial end of the clavicle, and it attaches to the superior anterior edge of the manubrium. This is the superior anterior edge of the manubrium, and behind this is the posterior superior edge. So this is the ligament which provides the maximum of stability on this sternoclavicular joint. Yes, so your sternoclavicular ligament is primarily responsible for the stability at the sternoclavicular joint. Now, costoclavicular ligament. So as the name is suggesting, this is the ligament which is present between the clavicle and the first costal cartilage, which is your first rib. Again, this costoclavicular ligament is having two parts. First is the anterior part which is running superior-laterally, and then there is a posterior fiber which is running superior-medially. So superior-lateral direction and superior-medial direction, these cross-shaped structures are present to provide the stability in the different direction by this costoclavicular ligament. So if the force is on the medial direction, then your superior medial will be acting, and if the force is on this lateral direction, then your superior lateral will be acting. Now interclavicular ligament, it extends from the superior border of the medial end of the clavicle, and it attaches on the same side on the opposite clavicle. So this is how interclavicular ligament is looking in this diagram. It is represented by this yellow color. Now the muscles which are present to provide the stability. So here this is sternocleidomastoid muscle. It is having two origins. First is from the sternum and second is from the clavicle, from the medial end of the clavicle. And this this muscle actually moves and attaches on the mastoid process. So that is how it got its name, sternocleidomastoid. And the sternum part is actually not the whole muscle, not the clavicle part, but the sternal part is providing the anterior stability to the joint, as this muscle is present on the anterior side. Now there is sternothyroid muscle which is coming from the sternum, and it is attaching on the thyroid cartilage. So this sternothyroid muscle is providing the posterior stability, as it is present on the posterior direction. Now sternohyoid muscle is again which is present on the posterior direction. It originates from the sternum and attaches on the hyoid bone. So this is also responsible, these two bones are responsible for providing the posterior stability to the sternoclavicular joint. Now articular disc, we already discussed that this is the disc which is present and it functions as a shock absorption. Also disc separates the joint into two cavities, because disc is present to increase the congruity. It is present in the joint space. If some structure is present in the joint space, it will divide that space into two parts. So your articular disc is actually dividing the space into two joint cavities, which is medial joint cavity and the lateral joint cavity. And because of so much stability at this joint, age-related degenerative arthritis is very rare at this joint. Your disc does not degenerate at this joint. A lot of cadaveric studies have been done, and in them it was seen that the articular disc after the death was intact in the cadaver, which suggests that there are very less degenerative changes which occur at sternoclavicular joint because of this immense stability which is present at this joint. So this is what I discussed in the previous slide, that your SC joint is tremendously stable, and if there is large medially directed force on the clavicle, it can cause the fracture of the clavicle, but your SC joint will not dislocate. So this is the amount of stability that this SC joint is having. Now let's study about kinematics. So we always divide the kinematics into two parts. First is the osteokinematics, in which we see the movement of the bones, and the second part is the arthrokinematics, in which we see the movement of the joint. So there are 3 degrees of movement which is present at SC joint. Sagittal plane movement is present, which is your anterior and posterior rotation. Then your frontal plane movement, if I take this clavicle. Now sagittal plane movement is your anterior and posterior rotation, and your frontal plane movement is your elevation and depression, and your transverse plane movement is your protraction and retraction. We are going to study them one by one. So the amount of anterior and posterior rotation which can occur on the sternoclavicular joint is 40 to 50 degrees. So this is the anterior rotation and this is the posterior rotation. Whenever the shoulder is abducting or flexing, a point on the superior aspect of the clavicle rotates posteriorly. As the arm is returned to the side, then it again rotates on its original position. This posterior rotation is very important for the maximum abduction to occur, because there is costoclavicular ligament which gets taut when you are doing the abduction. So while doing this posterior rotation, that ligament get laxed and it allows for the humerus to actually complete the abduction at the end range. So if the posterior rotation at sternoclavicular joint is absent, then whole range of motion of glenohumeral joint is not possible. So this posterior rotation is having a very important function on the biomechanics of the shoulder joint, because if posterior rotation is present, then only the end range can be possible on the shoulder complex. Then the other movement which is possible is your elevation and depression. This is your elevation and this is your depression. Elevation can be 45 degrees and depression can be up to 10 degrees. Then protraction and retraction. This protraction and retraction both can be of 15 to 30 degrees. The close pack position, or the position in which this joint is having the maximum of stability, or you can say that all the ligaments are taut in this position, this close pack position, and there is minimum of space between the articulating surfaces. This position is achieved when there is maximum shoulder elevation. It can be the maximal shoulder flexion also, it can be the maximal shoulder abduction also, and also scapular plane abduction can be there maximum, which will result in the close pack position of the sternoclavicular joint. Then there is the open pack position. When my arm is resting by side, this is the open pack position, which means that there is a space between the sternoclavicular joint, and the ligaments are also not taut, they are relaxed in this state. Now arthrokinematics. First let's see the arthrokinematics of elevation and depression. So this is the elevation movement and this is the depression movement. This elevation and depression is occurring at which diameter? They are occurring at the longitudinal diameter. They are occurring at the longitudinal diameter, and we know that the longitudinal diameter is convex in the clavicle. The moving bone is the clavicle, and by convex and concave rule, if the moving bone is the convex, then rolling and sliding will occur in opposite direction. So here the moving bone, which is your clavicle, is having the surface which is convex. So the rolling, if the clavicle is moving upwards, so the rolling will be in the direction of the movement. So rolling will be superior, and opposite to it sliding will occur, which will be inferior. If depression is there, then rolling is in the direction of the movement of the bone, which is inferior, and sliding will be superior, because the part of the diameter is convex shape. The diameter, this longitudinal diameter of the clavicle, medial end of the clavicle, is convex shape, and according to convex concave rule, if the moving surface is having the convex shape, then the rolling and sliding will occur in opposite direction. Now let's understand this protraction and retraction movement. This is occurring like this, and this coming forward and coming backward. Now this is occurring at the which diameter? This is occurring at the transverse diameter. So this diameter is actually concave in the clavicle. So the moving bone, the clavicle, is having the concave shape in this, and we know by convex concave rule, if the moving bone is concave in shape, then rolling and sliding will occur in the same direction. So this protraction movement, as the bone is coming forward, so rolling will be anterior, and sliding will be also in that direction by the convex concave rule, and the retraction bone is coming backward, and rolling and sliding will be in that direction, which means posterior. So this is how we can justify this rolling and sliding. And the rotation, so this anterior and posterior rotation is involving the spinning of the head of the clavicle, not rolling and sliding about the lateral surface of the disc. So full posterior rotation of the clavicle is closed pack position, that we studied in earlier slides also. Now this was all about the sternoclavicular joint, in which we discussed first the general features, which was the shape of the joint. Then we saw the connective tissue which is present surrounding the joints. Then we saw the osteokinematics of the SC joint. Then we studied the arthrokinematics of the SC joint. Now there are some questions for you to answer, and you need to answer them in the comment section, and let's see how many of you get them correct. I will be posting the correct answer in the comment section and pinning it after some time. First question is, what type of joint is the sternoclavicular joint? Your options are hinge joint, ball and socket joint, saddle joint, or gliding joint. Other question is, which ligament provides the primary stability to the sternoclavicular joint? Is it your acromoclavicular joint, or it is your coracoclavicular ligament, acromoclavicular ligament, coracoclavicular ligament, interclavicular ligament, or sternoclavicular ligament? Then the sternoclavicular joint allows for the movement in multiple planes due to its uniaxial nature, biaxial nature, triaxial nature, or non-axial nature. During shoulder elevation, the clavicle typically rotates to allow greater clearance between the arm and the rib cage, and this movement is known as protraction, retraction, elevation, or depression. So that was it for today's lecture. I hope you guys understood about the sternoclavicular joint, its general features, its connective tissues, osteokinematics and arthrokinematics. That's it for today's class. Hope you enjoyed it. Thank you.